Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. We are one day away, everyone, from the Premier League returning. Can you believe that? So anyway, I hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. We've got plenty to get stuck into today. We're going to talk about Gabriel Jesus, who has posted a picture of himself wearing boots. So he is back doing some sort of training on the grass. Obviously not going to be involved for a while, you'd imagine, but still a big step forward for him, and good news for Arsenal potentially as well. So we'll talk a little bit about him. We're going to talk about Oleksandr Zinchenko, whose comments in his book, his updated chapter in his book, have certainly caused quite a stir. I think a little bit unfairly, I have to say. So we're going to look at what he's had to say, and I'm going to give my thoughts on that because I've had a question on it. We'll talk about Tony Adams, who's come out with some comments about Martin Odegaard on the even new season and the captaincy at Arsenal. I'll give my views on that because lots of you have been asking about it on social media. Got some comments and questions, of course, as well. Reaction to what we were talking about yesterday, whether it should be Havertz or Gyökeres up front for the opening game against Manchester United. First of all, just quickly, if you want to join the normal Inside Arsenal FPL League, then this is the code. And I put this out a couple of days ago for everyone to join. This is not for the Inside Arsenal members. This is for everyone to join. That at the front, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. I'm also going to drop the code into the description below. Is a lowercase L. I think some of you, when you were trying to submit it, were doing a capital I at the front, which is understandable because it looks exactly like that. But it is a lowercase L. So it's LNV905 is the code to join the regular Inside Arsenal League. So we'll put that down in the description for everyone who's listening on podcast and who can't see that on screen. For Inside Arsenal Patreon members, you've still got a little bit of time to sign up for the FPL League. You need to do that before tomorrow's first game week deadline, which is 6:30 p.m. if you want to be involved in that league this season. There will be manager of the month prizes, overall prizes as well. We're going to be doing a weekly FPL show on for Patreon members as well to get involved with and for you guys to watch, which will be looking at the league, how it's shaping up, you know, upcoming fixtures, all that sort of stuff. So if you haven't signed up yet to become an Inside Arsenal member, loads of you have done that in the last few days. So really appreciate it. Welcome on board, everyone. I hope you're going to enjoy the community that you find over there on Patreon. But if you haven't signed up yet and you want to sign up, then you can do it. But if you want to be in part of the FPL League, you need to do it before tomorrow's 6:30 p.m. deadline. There is also a shirt competition running there as well, which the cutoff date is for tomorrow as well, where I'm going to be giving away a shirt to celebrate the start of the new season, a shirt of your choice. So yeah, if you want to come over and join that, be part of that, get all the extra exclusive content you would get as an Inside Arsenal Patreon member, then the link is down below in the description. Just copy and paste it into your browser. Go and sign up direct through Patreon. Don't do it through the Apple Store or iStore or anything like that, because they add on their little Apple surcharges, which you don't need to do. So just do it direct through patreon.com to become an Inside Arsenal Patreon member. Right, should we talk about Gabriel Jesus, shall we? There he is. This is what he's posted on Instagram, wearing his boots. And some people have said, oh, he's only done that for Media Day, which isn't the case. Look, he's not wearing, you know, those socks aren't Media Day socks at all. They're, you know, he's clearly been doing some training on the pitch, which is great. It's been 7 months now. 7 months. I think it was sort of mid-January when he did the injury. So look, he's not going to be suddenly coming back. He's not going to be in the squad for Manchester United or anything like that. We haven't seen him joining in with the squad yet, and this is a really sort of crucial time when you're coming back from ACL injuries. Is this bit between getting back on the pitch and doing some work by yourself and with the training staff and the coaching staff, the medical staff, before then joining in with the squad and start doing all the twists and the turns and the high intensity stuff that you have to do when you join in with full training. But this is really good to see for Jesus. It's been a really difficult time for him. Obviously, ACL injuries are such a horrible thing to go through and to come back from, especially on the back of a really serious knee injury that he had before as well. So, you know, he'll be feeling very good about himself, no doubt about it. And hopefully he will be able to play some part in Arsenal's season. But again, you know, I'm not expecting him back for, I don't know what, another 2 months. Maybe that will take it to 9 months, which will be really key. But, you know, 2 months down the line, it's not that far away. And he could still potentially have a really big part to play for Arsenal this season. Who knows? You know, a lot of people are writing Gabriel Jesus, but that could well be writing him off. But that could well be too early to do that. I think if you can get a Jesus back fit, and what was such a crying shame about the injury? I mean, the injury was a crying shame itself, but what was such a crying shame about the injury was that he just found his form again. You know, he was buzzing around, he was scoring goals. He was just looking like the Jesus that we all fell in love with when he first arrived at Arsenal and was just an absolute game changer. I will go to my deathbed saying it. That first few months of Jesus at Arsenal was seriously some of the best football I've seen from a new Arsenal player. He was so transformational. He was so good in all areas. And then the injury obviously robbed us of that. And he came back and he's never been the same since. But there were signs before the last injury. And so hopefully if he can get back, if he can, he can play some sort of part, how nice would it be to have three forwards like Gyökeres, Havertz and Jesus competing for places in the team? It'd be great. Look, I'm not expecting it to be a long-term thing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Arsenal, look to try and move Gabriel Jesus on if he can get himself fit. Certainly next season, maybe, who knows, even in January. I don't know. But just to have him back and available and to be part of the squad and to be an option for Mikel Arteta would be a really, really big boost. So delighted for him, and we'll wait and see what sort of impact he can have on Arsenal season, if any. But, fingers crossed that he can. And I'm sure, knowing Gabriel Jesus and the sort of mentality that he has, he'll be desperate to get back and play some sort of part and to basically show to people that he can still, perform at the highest level. So, yeah, good luck to Gabriel Jesus. Hopefully we will see him back very, very soon. Right, we're going to talk about another former Manchester City player now who arrived at the same time as Gabriel Jesus in Oleksandr Zinchenko. The two of them were such game changers for Arsenal when they arrived. They immediately raised the level of the squad. They, sparked that remarkable season that none of us were expecting, where they really pushed for the title that first season they were here. It's fair to say since then it's not really gone to plan for Zinchenko. He's very quickly sort of fallen down the pecking order at Arsenal. Arsenal sort of moved on beyond him, kind of like they did when he first arrived, and they moved on and went a different path to what they were doing with Kieran Tierney. They've now done that with Zinchenko, with Lewis Skelly coming in, Calafiori coming in. Zinchenko's found his minutes very, very difficult. And he has published his book, which came out a while ago, but I think there's a new edition of it coming out, probably in paperback this summer. And he's updated it, including bits from last season. And he talks at length in that about the struggles of last season, how difficult it was for him not playing his football. And those quotes have sort of gone, been shared far and wide since I think they were published in The Athletic yesterday. James Gunnerblog published an extract from the book, and everyone's been talking about it. Sean's got in touch here, says, "Hi, Charles, what's your opinion on the quotes coming out of Zinchenko's book? I feel they're a bit strange. If he's not happy about his situation, why doesn't he just leave? It seems to be about money for him." And that seems to be the sort of general consensus of how these quotes have been taken from Zinchenko. Now, if you haven't seen what he's had to say, this is what he had to say about the season. Last season, he said, "I was basically out of the starting 11 altogether, bar a few isolated matches. In pure personal terms, it was easily the worst season I ever experienced as a professional. Player who doesn't play is nothing. It's one thing when your body lets you down, that can happen, but going from one of the established players of the side to an unused sub is much harder to deal with. The sense of rejection you feel if your manager no longer believes in you can take the stuffing out of you, even if you're the most resilient guy on the planet. Sitting on the bench in a Premier League for a very generous wage packet is obviously still a privilege, the kind of problem that billions on this planet would swap for their much tougher lives in a heartbeat. Trust me, as a Ukrainian, I'm aware of that every single minute. But every footballer started playing because they love to play the game. Big part of your life is missing with it. Imagine this little boy who's dedicated his entire existence to becoming good at one particular thing and then finds at 28 he's essentially no longer needed, that there are others who can do the job for him. It's not a nice feeling." So that's what he had to say about last season and his lack of minutes. And everyone has sort of jumped on that and are using it as a bit of a tool to sort of beat him with at the moment. I agree the timing of it just makes him a bit odd, because this is a time, we've even seen stories in the last couple of weeks leading up to these comments that Zinchenko is thinking about seeing out the final year of his contract at Arsenal, which is quite right. He's quite able to do. It's his choice. If he wants to do that, he can. He's on big money at Arsenal. And if he waits another year and goes on a free transfer, he's going to have a lot more options available to him when he comes to looking at the market and where he could potentially go, because no one's going to have to pay a transfer fee. But for these comments to come out just at a time when those sort of stories are circulating, obviously it doesn't look great for Zinchenko, because it's like, well, you're saying this one thing and yet you're doing the other. And so I can understand the sort of the feeling on that. But what I will say about the comments is, at no point is he using this as a tool to bash Arteta. He doesn't slag Arteta off or anything like that for his thing. He totally accepts it. He's really, really glowing in his praise for Miles Lewis Skelly in it, and how he has sort of forced his way ahead of him in the pecking order as well. So there's nothing really negative, I don't think. This isn't him having a go at the situation. He accepts he's not been good enough. He accepts that there's players who are now sort of better than him and all of that sort of stuff. So I think aside from the optics of it, in terms of the timing of the comments, I don't really have an issue with it. Like when he talks about Miles Lewis-Skelly on it, he says he came in and made the left-back position his. He's a special talent, such a good player. What he's done is unbelievable. Yes, he plays in the same position as me, but I still need to acknowledge his talent, applaud him, and help him in any little way that I can to achieve his potential. He pushes me to become a better version of myself and to improve further. These are the demands at this level. If someone's better than you, you will be dropped. There's no option but to keep your head straight and to look forward. So, when you look at those comments, they're not bad from Zinchenko, and he accepts, look, he's not going to complain about it. He talks also in other quotes about it, how he's more than happy to do what he needs to do on the training ground, to go on the other team, to play against the starting 11 for the season, to play in different positions just to help out the team and to help tactically ahead of each game each week. So I don't really see too much of an issue with it, apart from the optics of the bit where he talks about, you just want to play as a footballer, you just want to play. And the optics of that around the time when there's, stories circulating that he might see out his contract doesn't look great. But he also says in this book, look, let's wait and see what happens in terms of moving on and all that sort of stuff. And there is still a lot of time left in the transfer window, and he might end up going. So in answer to your question, Sean, it's pretty long-winded, I know, but I wanted to read the comments out just to give context to it all. That my opinion on it is I just don't think it's anywhere near as bad as people are making out. And I think it's quite professional, some of the stuff that he says in it. It hasn't really riled me like it seems to have riled some others. And I actually quite respect some of the lot of stuff he's had to say in it as well. So that's my answer to that one, Sean. Thank you for getting in touch and asking about it. Elsewhere, under 23s, there was a good chance that Jack Wilshere was potentially going to come back and get involved in the youth setup at Arsenal again. That is now not happening. Looks like Jack Porter is going to be appointed as the new under 23s, under 21s boss on a full-time basis. Wilshere is going to carry on looking to make his way in the senior game. Disappointed. I spoke about this with Art De Rocha yesterday and Simon on the Arsenal Press Pass show, which went out for Arsenal Patreon members. Narrative-wise, romantic story-wise, it's always great to have Jack back. And it would have been nice to have him back around the club because he's such an Arsenal man. But I'm certainly not going to cry about it. I don't think it's not a massive blow or anything like that. And good luck to him. I hope he does make his way in the senior game and finds himself a good job. And I think Jack Porter will do a fine job taking on the 21s, 23s. Anyway, so no Jack Wilshere at return this time. He is staying out at the moment, staying out of work and looking to get himself into senior football once again. Right, let's move on. A lot of you have got in touch on social asking about this as well, which is Tony Adams has been speaking, and these quotes have suddenly circled. There's a video of it circling. It was an event in Dublin, I think. And he was asked about Arteta first of all, and that sort of led into him then turning the conversation to the captaincy and to Martin Odegaard, and basically sort of paraphrasing, he said that Arteta has a very big decision to make this season, and he says that Arsenal will never win anything with Martin Odegaard as captain. That was his view. He said that Declan Rice should be Arsenal's captain, and Arsenal will never win anything with Martin Odegaard as captain. He went on to say, I think Declan is my kind of captain, and what it might do, it might free Odegaard up to play with a bit more freedom. I think he's an Arsenal kind of leader. I think he's good in the dressing room, around the training camp, around the thing. He's got the standards, he's got the principles. He's a proper player and a proper captain. So basically saying, give the captaincy to Declan Rice, strip it of Martin Odegaard. You're not going to win anything with Martin Odegaard as captain. I love Tony Adams. He's one of my ultimate heroes. One of the greatest captain. Well, no, in my view, the greatest captain I've ever seen play for Arsenal. Unbelievable player. I absolutely don't agree with him on this one. Just don't agree with him at all on it. I think football has changed an awful lot since Tony Adams played. And I just think the sort of captains that he thinks need to be captains in his head, basically him, that type of player, I don't think really exist in modern football anymore. Do I think Declan Rice would be a good Arsenal captain? Yes, I absolutely do. Do I think that Arsenal can't win anything with Martin Odegaard as captain? No, I absolutely don't. Arsenal had an unbelievable season with Martin Odegaard as captain. Not last season, because there was so many things that stopped Arsenal having a good season last season. The season before, Martin Odegaard was captain. Arsenal had an unbelievable season. They did not win the league because Martin Odegaard was captain. They didn't win the league because Man City were just unbelievable and managed to just pip Arsenal to the post. But Arsenal got 89 points. They got more points in the Premier League season than any team that Tony Adams played in, with Martin Odegaard as captain. They won 28 games out of 38 with Martin Odegaard as captain. Produced a record-breaking type of season that we just haven't seen in a long, long time with Martin Odegaard as captain. So I just don't agree with Tony on this one, as much as I hate saying that because he's such a hero of mine. But I just don't agree with his comments on it. I think it just wouldn't make any sense to me to swap now. I know a lot of people disagree with that, and Odegaard seems to become a target for a lot of people, which I agree didn't have a good season last season, but he's got an awful lot of credit in the bank, in my view, and can have a bad season last season. There was certainly mitigating circumstances to that. I think it's an important season for him this season. He needs to stand up. He needs to show that last season was a bit of an anomaly and he can get back to the sort of form we'd seen before that. But, I think he's been a fine captain. I think he's Arteta's guy on the pitch. And I think he does an awful lot for this squad. And the captaincy, it just doesn't have that same sort of aura that it did back in Tony's day as well. Arsenal got so many leaders on the pitch in different positions. What does it matter if it was Declan Rice wearing the armband? Martin Odegaard's not going to be freed up by taking the armband off. He's going to be freed up potentially by Zubimendi arriving and Declan and Zubimendi allowing him to find a little bit more space in the areas of the pitch where he can really hurt other teams and not dropping deep. So I just don't agree with Tony on this one, I have to say. But let me know your thoughts on it. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with me, but let me know your thoughts on it or anything else you've heard in this show so far down in the comments below. Right, just moving on to some of your questions and comments now before we wrap this one up today. Lots of reaction to what we were talking about yesterday. Havertz or Gyökeres at Old Trafford, the decision facing Mikel Arteta when it comes to the striker situation. Diego says, hey, Charles, great content as always. Thank you. On your question on who should start, Havertz or Gyökeres, my view is Gyökeres should start based on a few points. He was great last weekend, powerful, hungry. As you said, he gave the team something different. It would also send a statement to the rest of the league that he is the one and that Arteta trusts him, especially with Sesko against United. Finally, we sometimes fixate on the starting 11 as a defining image of the team. And in this day and age, the depth of the squad is what wins you things. And having Havertz and Noni Madueke coming off the bench to be finishers of the game will be crucial. Thoughts? Yeah, look, my thoughts are absolutely, I think Gyökeres should start this game. As I said yesterday, I'm not entirely convinced that is what will happen. I think it probably will, but there's always that thing in the back of my head that when Havertz is fit, Havertz plays when it comes to Mikel Arteta. So I can't quite shake that out of the back of my head at the moment. But I think it'll be Gyökeres. And in my view, it should be Gyökeres for this game. I think he's done enough in pre-season over the last couple of games to do that. So yes, and like you said, Arsenal's potential having sort of finishers on the bench who can come in and really change things and change the shape of the game if needs be. And Madueke and Havertz is a really powerful tool to have. Scott says, hey, Charles, I think he'll go with Havertz at the left 8 and Rice in the 6 and Zubimendi will start the Leeds game the week after. The point now with the options of the squad is we have to be unpredictable. So I want to see changes made to the squad for each game, not like the full 11, but just swapping players in and out for each game. If he starts to say the same 11 every game at the start, we'll know what will happen come the end of the season. I can't see any way that Zubimendi doesn't start against Man United. Scott, I'll be absolutely staggered if he does that. If he plays Havertz left 8 and Rice as a 6 and Zubi's on the bench at Old Trafford, I just can't see any way that happens. It will be Zubimendi, Odegaard and Rice at Old Trafford. I'm 100% convinced of that. But I agree with you on terms of the squad and changing things around each week and keeping things a little bit unpredictable. Not 6 or 7 changes each week, but just a couple to shift things around, depending on opposition, all that sort of stuff. Just make yourselves a little bit unpredictable. I think that's a really good thing. I just realised I've added your comment twice there, Scott, so I'm not going to read that one out at the top. But Rob says, I think he'll go Havertz if he is fit. I see him going tried and tested for the opening game. Martin says, for me, it doesn't really matter who starts up top. I'm sure both Kai and Vic will get minutes in this game. All I want to see is Trossard or Madueke start on the left if Kai starts up top and Martinelli on the left if Vic starts up top. We'll get much more from these players if we play them in pairs from what I've seen from pre-season so far, in my opinion. That's an interesting one. Certainly think we saw signs of Martinelli being able to enjoy himself with Victor Gyökeres playing alongside him. Gyökeres drifting into those left-sided positions. Martinelli, as he did for the second goal last weekend, running into the space left in between as Gyökeres had pulled the centre-backs apart. Definitely think there's good signs for that this season. Polish Weekster says Noni, Gyökeres and Saka, no-brainer for United. And Jingle Tube says, I think it would be a mistake to start Havertz against United. If he starts, he's committed to 70 minutes of the game, and that's really limiting the opportunity Gyökeres gets to make his mark. We need to be positive and score goals this season. That's the only way we have a chance in this league. So that's what some of you guys have been saying about the striker situation. Just finally here, Ozzy says, hi, Charles, keep up the good work. I'm going to Old Trafford with my United supporting friend. Wish me luck trying to hide my passion and love the Arsenal in the United stand. Any advice? I'm not sure I'm the guy to ask for advice when it comes to going to Old Trafford, because my record there is quite frankly so unbelievably terrible. I wouldn't want to give anyone any advice of how to handle themselves at Old Trafford. I'm just glad that I'm not going this weekend for once, because it maybe gives Arsenal a chance of actually getting a win there, because the only times Arsenal ever seem to win at Old Trafford is when I'm not there. Advice, just enjoy yourself, sit on those hands, don't jump up too much, because you will annoy the hell out of Man United fans if we score and you start celebrating. But yeah, if you're sitting next to him, just make sure if a couple of goals do go in, give him those little digs in the elbow that only he can feel and no one else can see, because there's nothing more annoying than doing that. I remember taking my brother, who's a Charlton fan, in to watch Arsenal versus Charlton in 2003, I think it was. It was when Charlton won 4-2 at Highbury. It was a mad game. Klaus Jensen scored an unbelievable chip at the clock end. And I took my brother in to see that. He was sitting next to me in my dad's seat, because my dad was in Australia on holiday, I think, thinking we'd batter them, as we always did with Charlton at home. And they went and beat us 4-2. He still talks about it to this day and will never let me forget about it. He was just sitting there as every goal went in, jabbing me with his little elbows in the side. And it was so frustrating. I hated it. So, yeah, do exactly the same. Wind him right up if we start scoring, Aussie, at Old Trafford. But do it on the sly. Make sure no one else spots you. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it as always. Remember, if you want to sign up to the Inside Arsenal Patreon, the FPL League, you've still got a chance to do it, but you must get down into the description, copy that link, do it into the browser before 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.